80 years ago, our Congress met just weeks after the end of the most devastating conflict in human history. Tens of millions killed on the battlefield, millions slaughtered in Nazi concentration camps, and millions more across the globe, the innocent victims of war, including 200,000 men, women, and children who died when the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. At that historic Congress in 1945, our then President Charles Dukes reflected that out of the ruins of war, we are offered the opportunity of making a clear new start. In the hands of freedom-loving people, the new world waits to be built. Peace and security must ever be its foundations. Today, as we meet in Brighton 8 decades on, that vision, that hope, seems a long way off. We see a world riven by conflict, by war, by inhumanity, a world where authoritarian governments act with impunity, and a world where the populist and far right are once again emboldened. So my first call to you today is simply this: let us honour the vision set out to delegates at that Congress in 1945. Let us take a stand for solidarity, not division, and for a world where everyone can live, thrive, and work in peace. Congress, I want to start by celebrating our successes, and I want you to compare where we are now with when I first addressed you as General Secretary in Liverpool 2 years ago. The Tories' anti-strike legislation now gone, our right to strike protected. Hundreds of disputes across the public and private sector won. A public inquiry into the scandal at Orgreave secured. And the Employment Rights Bill about to be given royal assent in a matter of weeks, not by chance, not by accident, because we fought for it, we campaigned for it, and Congress, we will ensure it's delivered in full. We are winning for workers. And that's not all. It was unions and the Labour government working together that saw Parliament recalled and thousands of jobs saved in British Steel. It's thanks to our campaigning over decades that Britain's railways are coming back where they belong, in public ownership. And it's thanks to us and our calls for taxes on the wealthiest that at the budget, the Chancellor abolished tax breaks for non-DOMs, introduced VAT on private school fees, increased taxes on private jets, and even clamped down on well-known TV personalities buying farms to avoid taxes. Taxes that are vital for our NHS and our schools, again, not by chance, not by accident, but because we fought for it, we campaigned for it, and Congress, we won it. Now, it is absolutely right to celebrate our success, because our movement is needed now more than ever. The populist right is fueling the narrative that Britain is in decline. Of course, we know this country faces huge challenges. That's the toxic legacy of Tory destruction. 14 years of stagnant wages and living standards, 14 years of austerity and cuts to public services, and 14 years of rising insecurity and inequality. The Tories took Britain to the brink, and the public knows it. And that's why last July, the government was elected on a manifesto that promised change. I think we have to be honest. For far too many people, change still feels like a slogan, not a lived reality. That cannot continue. Think about that 1945 Congress and think about that 1945 government. Throughout our history, we've been at our best when we've been ambitious for working people. So today, my message to the government is simply this: deliver the manifesto which won you a huge majority last July. deliver good jobs, decent public services, and better living standards in every corner of the country. Deliver the change people voted for and show working people whose side you are on. Congress, if the choice is asking the rich to pay their fair share of tax or cutting our public services, then a Labour government must always be on the side of patients, parents and pensioners. If the choice is a fair deal for low-paid women or pandering to the outsourcing giants who profit from poverty pay, then a Labour government must always be on the side of people struggling to make ends meet. And if the choice is making sure the Amazons of this world play by the rules or allowing corporate bully boys to trample over workers' rights, then a Labour government must always be on the side of workers standing up for a fair deal. And don't just tell people you're on their side, show them. Introduce a windfall tax on record bank profits and gambling companies and back it with new taxes on wealth. Congress, if billionaires can afford fleets of private yachts and the odd day trip into space and weddings that shut down Venice, they can pay a bit more tax. Do what's best for those who go out to work day in, day out and still struggle to get by. Deliver the Employment Rights Bill and deliver it in full. And make it clear, a Labour government will never stand aside and watch your child's potential be wasted because of poverty. Lift the two-child cap and give our kids the future they deserve. Now, Congress, it's obvious over the last 14 months the governments haven't got everything right. And we've called them out when they haven't got it right. But be clear, Congress, the biggest threat to working class people in this country are the bad bosses and the right-wing populists. A nasty combination that should worry any trade unionist and any worker. Just look at that Employment Rights Bill. The government has a manifesto promise to make work pay. Stronger rights at work are overwhelmingly popular with voters across the political spectrum. The public knows decent work is the best way to deliver the reset this country needs, the best way to improve living standards, and the best way to rebuild our communities hit hard by low pay and insecure work. The sort of communities Nigel Farage likes to say he represents. Here's the truth. There is a world of difference between what Nigel says and what Nigel does. Every single Reform MP, including Mr Farage, voted against outlawing fire and rehire, against banning 0 hours contracts, and against day one rights for millions of workers. So here's my challenge to Nigel Farage. Say you stand up for working people, then ignore your wealthy backers and vote for that Employment Rights Bill. Say you're standing up for British industry, then stop supporting Donald Trump and his destructive tariffs. And say you believe in the NHS, then look the British public in the eye and tell them why you support a US-style private healthcare system. Nigel Farage, it is about time you came clean about whose side you're really on. Because here's the truth, you are not representing working people, you are selling them out. To those who voted Reform at the last election, to those who are considering voting for Reform, I get your frustration with mainstream politics. I get your sense that change isn't coming fast enough, and I respect your right to vote for whoever you choose. But ask yourself this fundamental question. Do you believe in your gut that Nigel Farage really cares about the people of Clacton when he's off collecting his speaker's fees in the United States? Do you believe that Richard Tice really worries about the people of Skegness while he's living it up at home in Dubai? or are they just right-wing con men lining their own pockets? And listen, they're not alone. The modern Tory party loses credibility with every single passing day. And I just have to say this. No amount of TikToks or Ozempic or expensive haircuts will ever hide the inner ugliness of Robert Jenrick. The man who ordered murals painted over in a reception centre for children seeking asylum is indeed a xenophobe, an opportunistic xenophobe, helping to create a political climate that ends up with far-right thugs laying siege to hotels and black and Asian people being threatened and harassed on our streets. And let me just say this about flags. I understand people take pride in the Union Jack, in the St. George's Cross, the Saltire, and the Red Dragon. But Congress patriotism is about more than flags. As that 1945 generation knew, real patriotism is about building decent homes and ensuring no one is left behind. It's about creating good jobs so people aren't left in poverty and feel pride in their labour. And real patriotism is never about daubing graffiti on people's homes or shops or intimidating our friends and neighbours. That's not patriotism, and it should shame anyone who loves this country. Congress, the far right, the populist right, don't care about working class people. They don't speak for working class people. They never will. That's our job, and that's what we stand for. Now, 2 years ago, I told you about my granddad Joe and about my pride in him coming to Britain from Poland to help in the fight against fascism. And my even greater pride in him building his life here in Britain. Part of that 1945 generation who rebuilt this country and rebuilt Europe after the war. His generation, Charles Dukes' generation, thought they'd vanquished the darkness of authoritarianism and the darkness of war. But Congress, right now, that darkness is everywhere. In Ukraine, in Sudan, and of course, in Gaza, a humanitarian crisis that shames the world. Thousands of starving civilians, women and children, killed while queuing for food. Hospitals, aid workers, journalists deliberately targeted. Kids seeking clean water attacked by the IDF. Congress, Israeli and Palestinian human rights groups are clear. Amnesty International is clear. Médecins Sans Frontières is clear, and I think we should be clear as well. Benjamin Netanyahu's government is committing genocide in Gaza. In April, I travelled to Palestine and I saw the conditions workers and unions face in the West Bank. One of the communities I visited, where a mosque had been burnt out, has now been erased from the map at gunpoint by illegal settlers. Homes, land, and livelihoods stolen. Congress, I am so proud to say that today in our Congress we're joined by Shahir Saeed, the General Secretary of the Palestinian General Federation of Trade Unions. Shahir, please. Congress, today in front of Shahir, Let us reiterate our movement's calls: a new permanent ceasefire, the release of all hostages and all Palestinian political prisoners, suspension of the UK's trade deal with Israel, tougher sanctions, a ban on imports from the occupied territories, respect for international law, an end to licenses for arms traded with Israel, and the immediate recognition of the state of Palestine, because you cannot have a two-state solution without a safe, secure and free Palestine. Thank you, Shahir. You'll hear from Shahir on Wednesday, Congress. Congress, a better future in the Middle East, a better future at home, a country where your postcode doesn't determine your life chances, where public services are a source of pride and not profit. Jobs you can build a life on, wages that keep up with the cost of living and then go further, thriving communities and high streets, and a government that puts people and not profit first. A better future means a fair and managed and compassionate approach to migration. It means strong industrial renewal, strong public services and fixing the Tories' bad Brexit deal. And a better future means, Congress, every new school, every hospital, every power station, every wind turbine built with union labour, supporting proper apprenticeships and supporting UK jobs. Congress, we have a huge amount to do to put right 14 years of Tory government, but I know that our movement can and will rise to the challenge, because we've done it before and we can do it again. In 1945, when my granddad and your grandparents, our unions and the Labour government, battered by 6 years of war, created the NHS, built hundreds of thousands of new homes and rebuilt our economy. And not just in 1945, the minimum wage, paid holidays, maternity leave, the right to join a union, universal education, protection from discrimination, so much more. None of them were handed down. They were fought for by people in unions at our best when we are ambitious for working people, their families and communities, and our best when we work together united as a labour and trade union movement. So here is our challenge to government. Deliver that employment rights bill in full, deliver the change you promised at the election, and show working class people you're on their side. A challenge to employers: don't fall on the wrong side of history. Don't repeat the mistakes of opposing the minimum wage. Respect the government's mandate to improve rights at work. And finally, a challenge to me, to every member of TUC staff, to every delegate in this hall, and to every trade union activist and rep out there in workplaces, to grow our movement, to take those new rights into workplaces up and down the country, and to reassert the reason this movement exists, to stand with and win for working people in every sector, every generation, every town, every community. Congress, this movement has shaped the history of our country. Now it's time to shape the future. Let's get to it. Solidarity, Congress. Thank you. Thank you, Congress.